at some point in time, I will actually bring this context once again back for you to understand. So let me just start, share my screen, share screen, share screen. Okay, so we did the story. Now let's just go one more time back to the world of artificial intelligence. So we learned in the last session, artificial intelligence is when machines mimic human intelligence to perform different tasks. And then a subset of artificial intelligence is something called machine learning, where practitioners develop artificial intelligence through models. We all saw models, data patterns, and algorithms. So they develop artificial intelligence through models that can learn from data patterns without human direction. Of course, we provide the initial context, or we provide the initial instructions at the beginning. And that is only way they will be able to formulate a model, and that model will in turn work without a human direction and make some predictions. Yep. So neural networks, and then a subset of machine learning is something called neural networks. So neural networks is a niche technology, is a very specialized technology that can analyze various factors in a data set. So as we were discussing, in a data set, there might be, so for example, a data set of students, there might be different factors, demographics, there might be factors on language, there might be factors on students' abilities to learn. So there are multiple parameters. So neural networks are multiple layered networks which have an ability to analyze these complex data sets. I would not go into much more detail because that would confuse you, but I just want to keep it simple, but understand for the time being that if you have a complicated data set or a large data set with multiple parameters, neural networks is a technology that can help you analyze that. And then a subset of neural networks or deep learning is something called generative AI. Generative AI focuses on creating new and unique outputs. So it goes much beyond analyzing data. So in the last session, we were talking about, okay, analyze the data for me and give me some insights. But this goes much more beyond analyzing the data. It can actually analyze the data, but then the output is a completely new creation, like a completely new essay. Write an essay on education situation in India. So completely new essay, and or a new image. Draw an image of a student working in a classroom in 2030, and we'll see some of these use cases as we go along. So generative AI can generate completely new and unique output, is the important thing that we need to remember. Now, just moving on. So if you just think about machine learning, what was machine learning? As we were discussing in the last session, machine learning was largely limited to predictive models, and they are used to observe and classify patterns in the content. So for example, in that education classroom example that we saw, we were saying that there are 60 students, but I am observing that at least 5 to 10 students who are weak, are not doing good, let's say in a specific topic like thermodynamics, and within thermodynamics there might be a subtopic. So what we are doing is we are looking at the data and we are identifying some patterns. And another example was, I took the rose example, but another example we can see is, image recognition or computer vision. So I will give a machine learning, and I will give machine learning inputs of 50 images, and in this 50 images, it will be able to identify what is a cat and what is a dog, and so on and so forth. So essentially, how does this work? We discussed that these machine learning models are trained by human beings, and they work with a lot of data. They classify various inputs, they put labels. Remember, in that rose example, in that flower example, we saw that there were a bunch of flowers, and to every flower we were putting labels. So that's how machines learn, and that's how machine learns to decipher what is right and what is wrong. So another example here, we've discussed that there can be a machine learning tool that can say, well, this is a social media post, this is positive, negative, and which is also called sentiment analysis, and this is all supervised learning. So supervised learning is when you are teaching the computer how to learn. So it's pretty much like how you teach a child mathematics or English. Now, the next generation of text-based machine learning examples, models, rely on something called the self-supervised learning. So this type of training involves feeding model a vast amount of text so that it's able to generate predictions. So, for example, some models can predict basis on few words how the sentence will end. So, for example, I will say there was a river near, there was a house near, and then the model will say there was a house near river. So, uh, um, or uh, or maybe Sanjeev is a good, and then it will say Sanjeev is a good man, or I can I'm just taking a random name. Niti is a wonderful teacher. So once you start teaching algorithms with some of these, they will be able to start predicting. So, for example, I will give algorithm a couple of sentences. Niti teaches students, and all her students like her classes. That really means Niti is a good, and if I put a dash, obviously algorithm, because it has been the model or algorithm, because it has been taught to understand and decipher, it will be able to predict that Niti is a good teacher. So this is an example of how you actually, make sure that models start learning, and you feed data and models start learning what is called the self-supervised learning. So basis their own analysis, they develop their own analytical abilities, and they will be able to predict a text output from a from a from a sentence that you will give. So how is generative AI very powerful? Why is generative AI so powerful? Generative AI is a breakthrough technology because rather than just perceiving and classifying a photo of cat, like we saw, or a photo of rose, it can actually create a image, because you give it a description of a cat and it will actually create an image or write an essay on cat on demand. That's why it's very powerful. It's able to create a new content altogether, rather than making a prediction, or rather than saying a yes or no, rather than classifying the data. It can actually make a bold new prediction, create a fresh new data. And that's why it's incredibly powerful. So just taking some examples to explain this. So chat gpt, some of you have already heard about it. So chat gpt can produce an essay comparing theories of nationalism from Benedict Anderson in 10 seconds. It has already produced, and this was very early stage, and obviously it has gone better since then. It has already produced a famous passage describing how to remove peanut butter sandwich from a VCR in style of King James. Image generating models like DALL-E can create strange, beautiful images on demand. So I'll show you how this works. So for example, Raphael painting of a Madonna and child eating pizzas, and so on and so forth. And there are a whole bunch of models that can produce a code, video, audio, or even business stimulations. So obviously, chat gpt and some of these generative AI technologies are incredibly powerful, and these technologies are carefully calibrated combinations of data. So how does this all work? So these are carefully calibrated combinations of data which are used to train algorithms. Because the amount of data used to train this algorithm is incredibly massive. So chat gpt-3, some of you have heard about chat gpt. So the GPT model, or GPT-3 transformer, or the model that powers ChatGPT, was trained on 45 terabytes of text data. Humongous amount of data, huge amount of data. And because it has been trained on this huge amount of data, the model can appear to be creative when producing output. So you tell it, okay, generate an image of a cat, it will generate an image of a cat. Generate an image of a cat with a beautiful hat, it will actually be able to do that as well. Generate write an essay on education system in India, it will be able to do that as well. Because why it is able to do that? Because it has been trained on massive amounts of data, which means that they can produce, they have lots of random elements. They can produce a variety of outputs from individual requests. So for example, because if you go back to that story, because chat gpt has been trained on many such stories, chat gpt will be able to predict what should happen next in that story that we were discussing. And we'll talk about that in a minute in a bit more detail. So Does anyone in the does anyone know who this person is by any chance? Just a fun fact. Does anyone know? No. So this person is a gentleman, is a artist called Salvador Dali, and Dali E, the famous model that can generate images, comes from his name. The name of that model comes from his name. So I just thought it will be a fun fact. But let's go forward. So how does this all work? How does these generative AI technologies work? So I'll give you a framework or a technology stack so that you have a little bit more clarity, and then we'll start thinking about some examples and use cases to understand this a little bit better. So I'll start from bottom and then I'll go up. So there are these processing unit, and don't worry about too much about the technological jargon here. Just understand at a high level how this all works. So at 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 the bottom of this layer, you have these processing units. So as I mentioned, these algorithms are trained on huge amounts of data. So there are these processing units called tensor processing units that are designed uh, for deep learning workloads, and they are optimized for performing metric operations. So these are really the processing units that actually make sure that they ingest and understand all of this data. So we spoke about how ChatGPT uses 45 terabytes of data. So there is a processing unit somewhere working in the cloud in US that has ingested all that data and is understanding, trying to make a sense of it. How is it making sense of the data? Remember that old diagram that we saw in the last session: data, algorithms, model, and then intelligence. So we have already given it a sequence of steps that do this, do this, do this, and basis this, it will be able to make a understanding of the data. And then on top of that, there is an architecture which uses a technology called natural language processing. So natural language processing is a technology which uses machine learning, or is a subset of machine learning, that enables the computers to uh, understand the human language. As simple as that. Don't go into too many details. Just understand that there is a huge processing unit that's analyzing the data. On top of that, there is an architecture that has natural language processing capabilities, and then there are these models which are pre-trained. So already there is a model that I have created which is pre-trained. So as I explained to you, there is already a pre-trained model which has been trained on 45 terabytes of data, and someone really said that it can work in English, it can work in Germany. So it's a versatile language model. So it has been trained on multiple languages. I think it has been trained on most of the languages that are used globally. I'm not sure if any of the Indian or regional languages is there, but definitely English, German, Latin, French. Some of the popular languages they have already been trained on those languages. And then there are some tasks for which they have been trained. So for example, classification. So they can classify, they can do a sentiment analysis. They've already been assigned some tasks and they've been trained on that. And then there are a whole bunch of API layers. So for example, the Google LLM. So Google or the open AI, they have their own API layers which connect to these models. And then on top of that, you have these applications. So OpenAI, as an example, is an application. You go into that OpenAI using an API layer. It can connect to these models, and then the whole thing starts working. So this is at a very high level. Don't worry too much about technology and the technology architecture, but I just wanted to give you a background of how this all works without making it overtly complicated. And I'll pause here for a question in a minute or two, but let me just finish, and then I'll pause here for questions. So the input is a large corpus of data, and then there is a untrained, that you use that data to train a model. Once you have trained the model, there is another language model. So because you've got a model that's already trained, and then you actually have that it actually goes to that fine tuning exercise where you actually teach the model to do all the tasks and so on and so forth. So there's already some training that has already happened, and because of that training, you are able to use generative AI. I would not go into much more details into this. This is slightly technical, and but I'll leave this presentation with the organizers. So if you would want, you can review this in a little bit more depth. But just to give you a quick high level overview, so there are foundational models, as we were discussing. There are these foundational models which are trained on massive scale of data, uh, and then generative AI, because of these foundational models, there is a data that goes into that transformer based model, and then you do a little bit of a fine tuning. And once you have done fine tuning, generative AI has develops that ability to work with these models and generate entirely new content. Now, there are different versions of generative AI. You've got OpenAI, ChatGPT. You've got Google, which has their own version. You've got Meta, which is Facebook's parent company. They have their own model. So different companies have different models, and they are developing these products. But they all work fundamentally on this technology, where you're using lots and lots of data to train these models. There are two things that happen in this journey, so which are important for us to understand. So there is something called pre-training, so that it develops that general understanding. So it's like, how you train a child, language capabilities, mathematical capabilities. So how you teach a child. So those are some pre-trainings and the training process is the same as we discussed in the last session. You give it data, you give it some instructions. Basis that data, it develops algorithms and patterns, and then it develops that intelligence. So so you do that pre-training, and then you do a bit of a calibration or fine tuning. So you tell, okay, chat gpt, from here on you will be only doing summarization. So how do you do summarization? You will give it some steps, and that's the part of the fine tuning process. So teaching that model to do some tasks. So it's similar to how you teach a child. So you've taught the child English, you've taught the child science, you've taught the child mathematics. Now when the child grows up, you tell him, okay, now you have a command on language, now you have intelligence. Now what you need to do is, this is how you will write an English essay, this is how you will solve a mathematical problem. So pre-training and fine-tuning. Pre-training is the general training that helps these algorithms develop that general understanding, and then fine-tuning is for a specific task or a purpose. These important concepts are good enough for you to remember, and this will give you good enough sort of insight. I would not cover a lot of this into detail. Again, would leave this presentation with you. But just going back to that story, if you think about that story now, there are thousands of stories like that on which chat gpt is trained. So what happens in its pretty much like when we read these stories, we also develop a conscious understanding of what would happen next in the story. Pretty much like that, chat gpt also, when it goes through humongous amounts of data, it starts to develop its own understanding of what would come next in a sentence or in a story. So for example, when you teach chat gpt, let's say, when you teach chat gpt on panchtant stories, and you will give it a prompt, okay, this, I'm developing a panchtant story, there was a lion. So basis that information, chat gpt will be able to do a specific task. Remember, I told you about fine tuning and I told you about general intelligence. Then now you're giving chat gpt a specific task. Only look at panchtantra stories, and from there it will develop its own context. So obviously in a panchtantra story, a fairy tale would not come. It would be really around animals and a slightly more Indian or indigenous context that comes in a panchtantra story. So go back to that story example that I was telling. It's all about context. What kind of context you are giving it to the chat gpt. So if you give it a Indian context, chat gpt will pull up a Indian story. If you will give it a Greek context, it will pull up stories of Harry Potter or fairy tales and so on and so forth. I want to pause here and see if anyone has questions, or if, because this is lots to absorb and process, but all I was trying to do is at a very high level explain you and help you understand how chat gpt and generative AI works. So is this making sense? Is everyone able to understand how this works? And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. go offline and ask questions. And I want to give you a couple of minutes to process all this information and ask questions. Please go ahead if you have any questions. Anyone has a comment? Now, some of you who have used ChatGPT, is this context helpful? I've given you a context of how this works in the background. Parde ke piche kya ho raha, behind the curtains, what is happening. So is this context a bit more helpful? Yes, no, maybe. Yes. So I see Jacinta and then Dr. Gute, you have raised your hands. Please go ahead. Jacinta Bastian.
Sir, I just want to say it's helpful.
Okay, thank you. That's a good feedback. Thank you. And you can type in the chat as well. I'll look in the chat as well. Okay, and I now realized Muhammad Mustafik ji was able to tell he was Salvador Dali. Thank you. Yes, that was correct. Uh, Helpful. Okay, helpful. Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's move forward if that's the case. And we'll now talk about some specific use cases and some specific examples. And I'll also show you how you can benefit from ChatGPT. Now, some of you I know have already used ChatGPT. So we'll look at how do you sharpen your prompts and how do you do prompt engineering. For those of you who are new to ChatGPT, this would also be helpful. This just gives you the introduction as well. So I'll start from bare bone basics and then we'll build from there. So let me just share my screen one more time. Okay, now I'm hit the presentation mode. I'll go. Okay, so we'll talk about use cases. But before we talk about use cases, I want to make sure that again, as I always do in my sessions, important for us to all remember what are the ethical considerations in generative AI. So we talked about some of these in our last session, but just want to reinforce that. Again, bias and fairness. Generative AI models can learn from existing data, which may contain biases. And these biases can perpetuate stereotypes or discriminate against certain groups. And developers, if you are a developer or if you are developing a chat GPT based or generative AI based solutions, you should make sure that you address these biases using diverse and representative data sets. And obviously fairness assessments are important, regular audits are important. Now, I'm sure you have heard about some of the bad output that has came from chat GPT. So it has made some uh, unacceptable comments against certain groups of people and so on and so forth. So that's not right. So the trouble is that some of that has came from the data that was fed into chat GPT. So how do you address this problem? So companies like Microsoft, companies like Google, they are already building filters in their technology. So to weed out any discriminatory or obnoxious content or content that might be detrimental to any particular group. So uh, they're already building those guardrails or they're already building those. But just from us as an educator, it's also important because we are the end user. So sometimes chat GPT will give you an answer that might have harmful content or that might have content that is not right. So as a teacher, as an educator, it's our responsibility to make sure that we weed that content out, we keep that content out, and we only take content which is fair, which is not harmful, and so on and so forth. So important thing for us to remember: transparency and explainability, because these some of these technologies are very complicated, complex, technical. They are like black box. So it's hard to understand how this works, and because of that, it's hard for the end user to realize the difficulties. And that's why I did spend some time to explain you how generative AI works in behind the curtains, पर्दे के पीछे कैसे होता है. So I did explain to you because as an educator, you need to understand that, because many a times you will be sharing this information with your students or you will be using chat GPT. So it's important that as a developer, if I'm a developer, I'm being completely transparent and I'm explaining how this works. And as a end user, it's also important for you to understand as well. uh, Privacy and data protection, there are already cases where uh, you know generative AI might generate sensitive or personal or private information. That's not right, because at the end of the day, generative AI also has picked up information that was on web, on social media. We don't know exact sources on which, for example, Open AI's Chat GPT was trained on, but we do know that some information that was personal, private, or sensitive has might have got leaked into that data set, and because of that, it might just reflect in the answers that are coming out, and that's not right. So just there's nothing much we can do about it, because at the end of the day, that's really for Open AI to solve. But just being aware, as an end user, that there might be some sensitive information that we should not process, and we should not share forward, cascade forward. And then as a user also, we should be aware that whatever we are putting in our public domain, so whatever we are putting in, if it's on a website or on a Facebook or anything which is on public domain, make sure that none of that is your personal, sensitive, or private information. Because then, as with anything else, as with Google search, or as with Bing search, Chat GPT might also pick that up, and it might not stay confidential, and that might not be right. Another very important point: human oversight and validation. As I mentioned earlier, some of the content that comes out of Chat GPT might be incorrect, discriminatory, or obnoxious, and definitely needs a human pass. So if you're using, let's say you're using Chat GPT, hey Chat GPT, create a, let's say you're giving it a prompt, create a lesson on, let's say, create a lesson on education system in India. Let's say you give that prompt, and it turns that lesson out. Make sure that you proofread that, to make sure there isn't anything discriminatory or incriminatory that's there in that lesson. No content is harmful or discriminatory. And then also make sure that that's double check to make that accurate. Chat GPT has known to give out wrong answers or false positives as well. Very important point to remember. There was a case in US where a lawyer, during a hearing in court, referenced a Chat GPT article or a Chat GPT case, and it turned out that that case was fictitious. Chat GPT just made it up. There was no case at all like that. And then that lawyer ended up using that without making sure to check whether that was accurate or not. And he was in a very uncomfortable sort of a situation. So make sure that you proofread the content, you weed out any discriminatory sort of a content, weed out any content that's obnoxious or should not be used. And then you also make sure to double check, just do a spot check and understand whether the content that's coming out of Chat GPT is accurate or not. Again, as with any other technology, it has both positive and negative purposes. There are a whole bunch of negative purposes uh, bad people can do with this technology.
Hello, you
So
are not
uh,
audible.
that's why.
Hello, hello.
Yes, yes. Am I not audible? Sorry, am I not audible?
I think it's
Can
disconnected.
Audible,
everyone
sir.
hear me?
Audible,
Can
sir.
can I
Audible, sir.
audible? Okay. Uh, Everyone, can I just do another check? Am I audible or am I not audible? Just say
You are
audible.
audible, sir.
Audible, sir.
You are audible,
Audible.
sir.
Hello,
Okay.
Asim sir,
You're
Audible,
are
audible.
you
sir.
there?
Yes, Bakhtiar, but it looks like I'm audible. There might be a problem at your end, Bakhtiar. Okay, I'll continue. I'll keep sharing and I'll continue. Okay, so with that, let's just I'll start learning, and let's just see how to work on Chat GPT. So if you're already signed in into Chat GPT, feel free to sign in your version, or you could follow me, on my screen as well. There's some background noise. Can I request everyone to mute your lines, and we can open the lines.
Hello, Kapilji, you are still not audible.
Sir, you are audible to us.
Okay. Well, Mr. Bakhtiar Khan, it seems that there might be a problem at your end because others can hear me.
Yes, sir. Yes.
I'll type that in the chat. Looks like Mr. Bakhtiar Khan is having difficulties. So I'll request him to log off and log back in. Type that in the chat. Okay, let's continue. So chat gpt and how to use that, we're already sort of discussed the ethical considerations. We've already discussed the how generative AI works. So chat gpt, so let me just share my screen and show you live how to sign in for those people who have never used chat gpt. So let me just share my screen here. Okay, and I'm using two screens, so let's see how this works. Okay, yeah. So okay, so all you have to do is type chat gpt in the Google, and I'm actually taking this from absolute basics. So you have to type chat gpt in Google and you will hit open AI and you will get chat gpt as the first link. And then it will ask you to sign up, and it might just ask you to sign up when you enter first time, and you have to provide your credentials like with your email or any of the applications that you use. And then once you're signed up, you will actually get to this screen that I'm showing on my window. Can everyone see my chat gpt screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay, so we'll start with some simple prompts, and you can see a whole bunch of prompts that I've used, and some of these are related to AI powered pedagogy. So we'll talk about that as well. But let's just start with a simple prompt, and we'll start taking some more complicated use cases. So let's say, uh, make a 10-sentence story on lion in the in jungle. So yep, simple prompt. It will do, and obviously because I didn't give it context, it says African jungle, majestic lion, and it actually has taken up a context. Now, obviously, I could actually refine this prompt and say, uh, I could say, make a 10-sentence story on lion in a in a Indian Indian jungle. Yeah. So I make it a little bit more specific. Yep. So and then now let's now see how this beautifully switches the context. Remember in the story that we were building, we were switching the context. Now how beautifully it has switched the context here. So in the lush green jungle of Gir, because it has been trained on data which says that in India lions are found in Gir National Park, it understands and it is able to actually bring that up here. So in the lush green jungle of Gir, a regal forest named Ranjan. So obviously, it has an Indianized name as well. If you as if you compare this with the previous story, it didn't have an Indianized name. So it has an Indianized name as well. So what is happening here is it is able to contextualize answers basis the questions that you are asking it. And that is why it is incredibly powerful. And you can switch the context as well. So you could pretty much like what we did on our story, uh, in the above story, I'll switch the context. In the above story, bring a new character, Mowgli. Let's say I do that. So in the again, it is able to completely switch the context, and it has now got a new character Mowgli, and it is able to actually bring in that context as well. Yep. So you see, just as Ranjan was able to return to his patrol, a young boy emerged from the shadows. offered. Yep. So look how beautifully it has brought that new context in that story. So this is the power of this technology. It is super intelligent just because it has been trained on humongous amount of data. It understands the context. It can bring in new context. And with that new context, it can actually give you a new lens to think about the same situation in a very different way. So it's like a kaleidoscope. Has everyone seen a kaleidoscope? Yes. So every time you see a kaleidoscope, it has a different pattern, right? So pretty much like this, you can give it another context, you can switch the context, and every time it will give you a completely new output, a different pattern altogether. Okay, I want to pause here and then we'll talk about the prompt engineering piece as well. So I want to pause here and see if anyone has a question. Question? No question? Okay, so let's just talk about prompt engineering. So let me just go back to my presentation. Might have to stop sharing and share one more time. Sorry, Namrata ji, were you trying to ask a question? I see you come off mute. No? Okay. If anyone has a question, please feel free to come off mute. Okay. Okay, so what I'll do today is I'll give you some basics of prompt engineering and how do you craft out good prompts. So as we saw in that previous example, the the better prompts you give ChatGPT, the better output you will get. So if you give a specific prompt, you will get a specific answer. If you need a specific answer, you have to give it a very specific prompt. The quality of prompt, as it happens every time, what are prompts? Prompts are your instructions. So the quality of prompts ensures, if you have good quality prompt, you will get a very good answer. If you have not so good quality prompt, you will not get a good answer. So this is coming from Microsoft. Microsoft has a tool called Copilot, and they have given this 4-step structure to design a good prompt. So what are those 4 steps in that prompt structure? So first step in this is for you to define the goal for ChatGPT or Copilot. So what is your goal? So my goal is I want a list of 3-4 bullet points to prepare, and then you give it a bit more context. That what are you preparing for? You're preparing for a meeting with client, focusing on their current state and what they are looking to achieve. And then what is your expectation? You want to say that please respond with a tone that's friendly yet authoritative. So you also want Copilot to give a very friendly and authoritative tone. And then you also want to give it a source. Where should Copilot focus on? Where should ChatGPT or where should generative AI focus on? So you want to say focus on email and team chats with people over the last few weeks. Now, if you want to run the same prompt, let's say you were a teacher and you want a lesson plan, or you want a lesson plan for a subject, you can obviously customize and tweak this prompt and say, I want a lesson plan to prepare me for an upcoming lesson on thermodynamics for college students. Obviously you have to give it a little bit more context, and keep the language easy to understand, and but crisp and sharp and easy to understand, and focus on, and you could actually say that focus on publicly listed information like NCRT books and books that are coming from authoritative sources like government. So you can actually give it that kind of a prompt, and it will actually give you a very good lesson plan as well. So remember this 4-step process. You have to define a goal, you have to give it a bit more context, you have to set the expectations, and then you have to give it the source of information so that it actually hones in or is sharp enough or is focusing on that source of information. Because obviously your source of information should be accurate for the results to be accurate. Normally I'm assuming that some of the government sources or some of these more authoritative sources are correct sources of information. So they will give you the correct information. And that's why it's important to define the source as well. Yeah. So that was a bit more about prompt engineering. So we will take up some use cases, uh, just so that you are able to we are able to see live examples. So let's pick up a use case. Does anyone in the group have a use case? Yes, no, maybe. Does anyone in the group have a? Can everyone hear me? I see someone who's written no sound. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I see a couple of people saying no. That's strange. Yes, audible. Okay. So does anyone have a use case that you want to take as an example? Any use case from your day-to-day job, any lesson plan that you want to develop, anything, maybe, assessment of 10 questions on a particular topic. We can try that out. Anyone wants to volunteer? Please come off the mic and come up with your use cases. As I said, I want to keep it interactive.
So preparing learning outcome of a subject.
Preparing learning outcomes of a subject. Okay. Okay, great. Let's just use that. So let me just go back to my chat GPT.
Sir, presentation is not visible.
Yep, I'm just sharing my screen one more time. Yes. Thank you for alerting. I'll share my screen one more time. Okay, so let me just share my screen. Okay, so just going back to that process, what was those 4 steps in our process? Goal, context, so if I just go back here, so goal, context, expectations, and the source. So what is my goal? Develop sorry, that was lesson plan, right?
Learning
Sorry,
outcome of
learning outcomes. I'm sorry. Yeah, develop learning outcomes. So that's my goal. Develop learning outcomes. And what do you teach? What are you trying to teach? Because we have to give it some context. So
general we can e-commerce or something or computer network.
computer network. Okay. So develop learning outcomes of uh, computer network.
Undergraduate level.
Yes, that's great. Undergrad course, and then you're giving it more context for undergraduate students. So you have given it a goal, develop learning outcomes, and then you're giving it what more context. So context is computer network course for undergraduate students, and then I want to give it some instructions, or I want to set some expectations. So uh, you know keep keep outcomes, because I don't want a lot of text. So I'll say keep learning outcomes to 10 sentences max, so that I'm defining that, okay, you cannot go beyond 10 sentences, and use easy easy to understand language. So I've set some expectations for chat GPT here. And then I can also say that, and use use publicly available resources from top universities. So obviously some of the universities publish their learning outcomes. What you really want to do is just use some of that, because that's a much better piece of information uh, than other pieces of information. So, so you are making sure that publicly, okay, publicly, oh, spelling is wrong. Oh, okay. Publicly available resources from top universities. So is this prompt, does that prompt make sense? So we've given it a goal. Goal is to develop learning outcomes of a computer network. Now we're giving it a little bit more context. Context is important. So of a computer network course for undergraduate students, keep outcomes limited to 10 sentences. We are setting some expectations, and then use easy to understand language, again setting some expectations, and then we are also telling that you should use these sources. So just make sure that our analysis or our output is a lot more sharper. So use publicly available resources from top universities. Now I hit enter, and you will see the magic. And if you see here, something very interesting has happened.
Sir,
Yes.
recently I have prepared a lesson plan on a particular topic. So, if you want to see that lesson plan, you can surprise that it was quite good and effective.
Okay, so yes, please. So what you, if you could help us, so what you could do, please, for us is share that lesson, share that output and your prompt. What is the prompt that you used? Share that and share your output in the chat so that everyone can benefit.
First, I am showing the lesson plan that was prepared by the ChatGPT.
Okay, so let me complete this discussion, and I'll open it up for you in 2 minutes. Okay, Riton?
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so let me just share my screen. Okay, so you see here what has happened. Can everyone hear me? Just shout, just give me a shout out. Yes, you can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so develop a learning outcomes,
Yes.
for learning outcomes of a computer network course for undergraduate students. I said keep 10 sentences, easy to use language. And then I said use publicly available sources from top universities. So what it has done for all of us, and this is where it actually is powerful, it has given a lesson plan. It has used 10 bullet points. So, it has explained all of these 10 bullets. And then because I requested it to keep it limited to source, I defined the sources. It has not picked up any random source. It has picked up from a good source. It's the University of Arizona's course. It has universities of and you can actually click on that and you can see the source as well. So that ways your output is all the more powerful and effective, because you can see the output and you can see the source as well. And that ways, remember I told you that it's important to check the output that's coming from ChatGPT. So this is one way of double checking, cross checking the output that's coming from ChatGPT, and it's accurate. It has came from a recognized source. It has came from a good source. It has came from a good public university, and so on and so forth. So the way you prompt actually is important, and the way you prompt will define the quality of your output. Does that answer your question, Manjuji? Was that helpful?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very
Okay.
useful for us.
Okay, great. Okay, yes, sorry. Someone was trying to talk about the lesson plan, so please go ahead. I'll stop sharing.
Yes, sir. Myself,
Yeah,
Riton.
Riton. Yes, please. So if you could show, you feel free to share your screen and
At first,
share
I
your
am
screen.
talking about the prompt that I was given. That
Yes.
it is prepare a lesson plan on learning ecology using advanced and modern technological devices and application to make it more suitable and understand to the students.
Very good. Very good. Okay.
I am showing it.
So, yeah.
That was.
So do you have ChatGPT open, and can you show what it did for you? Do you have ChatGPT open?
Yes, I have prepared it already. It is saved in my laptop.
Okay, so are you okay to share your screen and show us the magic?
Yes.
Great. Go ahead, please.
Is it visible?
Yes, it's visible. Thank you. Yes.
This is the lesson plan that was prepared by the ChatGPT.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay,
Yes.
go ahead. Yes.
Okay. So Riton, can you share your prompt as well, please?
Share your prompt as well, please.
Okay, I'm saying. I'm writing it in ChatGPT.
Yeah, sure. Show. Or you can speak out or show whatever is easy for you.
So I'm speaking. Prepare a lesson plan
Mm-hmm.
on learning ecology
Okay.
using advanced technological devices and applications.
Very good. So you have given it a context. You have given it a bit more context. Yes. Okay. Good.
And collaborative methods
Mm-hmm.
in order to make it more understandable and interesting to the students.
Very good. So last part was very interesting because you have clarified that you want to make it interesting for the students. So you have actually set this expectations. So if you go to that framework that I was explaining to design a prompt, this is called prompting or telling instructions to the computer. So how do you do that? The first step is the goal. So that was in Riton's case, it was develop a lesson plan, then giving it a bit more context. So the context is that a lesson plan for ecology, lesson plan for, and you can give it, and you can expand on the context as much as you can. And then you have to set some expectations that, okay, make a lesson plan on ecology, but make it very interesting for students. So make sure that you set those expectations so that accordingly the generative AI can tweak its output. And then finally, as I was mentioning, you have a choice. It's optional. You can also define some resources that it should use for that lesson plan. So that's that 4-step framework to give instructions or prompt to any computers in situations like this. Thank you, Riton. That was very helpful. Thanks for showing that up. Anyone else wants to show what they have done using Chat GPT? Anyone else? No? Okay, moving on. So I will show you another practical demonstration. The next one is images. So how do you generate images? So as I was explaining in my presentation, so Chat GPT and generative AI, as the name suggests, can generate original content. So it can actually generate content that is original, and it can generate a new image, fresh new image from you. Obviously, it uses the instructions and the inputs and the data on which it has been trained, but it can actually create something completely different and new for you. So many a times for your presentations, you might need an image. You might need an image that you want to generate, and you can actually use a free tool, and I'll show that tool to you. It's a tool called Microsoft Designer. So all you have to do is just go to Google. Yep, and there are a whole bunch of them. There is Firefly, there is Mid Journey. So there are a whole bunch of them. I chose Microsoft Designer because it's free, and if you have a Microsoft account, you can actually start working straight away. I wasn't sure about any other tools which are available for free, or if they are freemium versions. I don't know that, but this is a tool that I sometimes use. So I can show that for all of you, and if any of you are exploring, you can go back and explore that a bit more further. So let me just share my screen. Share screen, and Okay, and I'll sign in and share my screen. Just give me a minute. Yeah, so Microsoft Designer share screen. Hopefully in a minute you can see, you can all can see my screen. Yeah, so you can see my screen, right? You can see Microsoft Designer, designer.microsoft.com. Yes. Can everyone see my screen? Yes. Okay, I see thumbs up. Okay, so very simple thing, you don't have to, you can see there are a whole bunch of images. You can start with some custom images, and and then you can try and put your own prompts or instructions as well. So let's say I give it a simple instruction: a student and a robot in a classroom in 2030. Simple instructions. I've given it a simple instruction. And if I say, okay, so create with AI. So a student and a robot in a classroom in 2030, I give it that instruction, and I've specified the size, and I say generate. And look, the magic that will happen. It will take a few minutes. So there you go. It has given you 4 images. So you've got a robot and a student here, this one, this one, this one. So you can see, you know, it has a whole bunch of images, and you can obviously cherry pick the one that's of most importance and relevance to you. We can play with this. You can say, uh, image image of brain working for my presentation. So that way, you have defined a context and you have given it a goal, so that it will give you an image that is formal and that can be used in a serious presentation. Image of a brain working for my presentation. Let's see what it does. There you go. It has that gear sort of a feel, and it gives that feel of a machine. And then there are different ways. There is, and look and see how rich these images are. There's a bulb, there are ideas, there's a whole bunch of things that are there on these images. So incredibly powerful technology. Till now we've been using Photoshop, or we've been using the image editors, but not anymore. We can use this technology to sort of generate image of our own choice, with our own liking, as per our own liking, as per our own sort of what we like, what we don't like, and so on and so forth. Is this helpful?
Sure, sir.
Yeah. So this tool is called Microsoft Designer. If you go to Google and type in Microsoft Designer, you will be able to get to this. You have to sign in using your credentials, but it's a free tool, and it works on a model called DALL-E. Remember, I was showing that Salvador Dali's photograph. So that it works on a model called DALL-E. And it's an incredibly interesting tool, and you can spend hours trying to generate these images for your presentations and for some of your artwork. And it is very creative and incredibly powerful. Likewise, I mean, there are a whole bunch of tools that help you generate videos as well. There are a whole bunch of tools that you can use to generate new code. So there's a tool in GitHub that you can use to generate a Python code. and so on and so forth. So there are multiple applications of this generative AI, right from generating images to generating videos to generating text to finding to summarizing text to actually giving you an assessment and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's look at some questions, and I see a very good question. So Mohammed Mustafik has asked, can we use these images generated in AI, generated by AI in original research papers? Very good question. To be honest, I don't have a good answer to this for the simple reason. If you think about companies like Microsoft or Adobe who are shipping out these products, and if you ask them, are these original images, or do they have is there an IP around these images? They are not sure, and even some of their answers are vague. So my personal advice is that if you are using these images, make a mention, always make a mention that this image has been created using generative AI. That way you are being transparent and you are telling people wherever you're using it that this image is used creating generative AI. As of now, this is a gray area. Who has control over the IP, or who holds the IP for these generative images? So there is no sort of a no sort of a IP guideline or a unique common baseline guideline that's there. So my recommendation would be that if you at all you're using these, just make sure to capture that somewhere as a byline that this image was generated using generative AI software. Muhammad Mustafik, does that help? That was a very good question, by the way. Does that help? Is that a helpful answer? I don't know, probably not, but does that help a bit? You could type chat or you could speak up. And if you have any additional question. Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you. Okay. Let me look at some comments before we close up. So we know that search engines like Google uses our search history to show advertisements. Similarly, Chat GPT uses our prompt or would use that in future. Again, a very good question. Um, well, Chat GPT, the free version of Chat GPT. So there are two versions of Chat GPT, Mohammed. One is the free version of Chat GPT, and then there are these enterprise versions of Chat GPT. Now, the free version of Chat GPT, how does that use your prompts, your question to fine tune? It's something that's a bit of a gray area and a black box. It does say, if you read through the fine print of their terms and conditions, it does say that it saves the prompt history to answer your questions better. But does it use that for any other purpose? I don't know. But the enterprise version of Chat GPT, and they are very clear with that, that would not save your history, and that would not use your history in any other way. Now, obviously, the enterprise version of Chat GPT is a paid version. It's not a free version, but something for you to consider. But as far as the free version is concerned, I can cross check, but to the best of my knowledge, there isn't a very clear answer on that, how it will use that information in future. But again, a very good question. Thank you for asking that, and I hope that answers your question. Okay, let me see if there are any more comments. If I do same prompt from my oh, again a good question. So Minu is asking, if I do same prompt, if I ask same, so I put a prompt in Chat GPT, and it gave me some answers. And if you would put the same prompt, interestingly, the answers might be different basis your prompt history, basis the little information it has about you. So for example, if it already knows that you are a geography teacher, it might just contextualize those answers as per those as per that information. So very good question. The answer, to the best of my knowledge, is that outcomes could vary person to person even with the same prompt. And it's interesting, if I ask the same prompt 5 days later or a month later, it might actually come up with a different answer altogether. So the way it's interacting with data, the way it's interacting with end user, all of those things are evolving. and our understanding of tool itself is evolving. So obviously, as I was explaining earlier, it's like a kaleidoscope. Every time you will see a new pattern, every time you will see something new and fresh, and that's the power of this technology. Let me see if there are any other questions. Jayanta made a comment that I think people will go away from reading books after availing of such easy steps. Very interesting comment. Jayanta, do you want to comment on that? Do you want to elaborate on that? It's a very interesting comment. Jayanta, if you're around, do you want to talk about that a bit more? Would ChatGPT take away our natural sort of propensities to read books, we have this natural curiosity as human beings? Would ChatGPT take that away? Jayanta, do you want to make a comment on that? And then I'll try and sort of also provide my perspective. Jayanta, are you here? Jayanta Sonowal? Not on the call or dropped. Okay, well, to be honest, the opinion is divided on this. Obviously, ChatGPT, a lot of people are using ChatGPT to enhance and augment their learning. So, as with any other technology, the opinion is divided. As with any other technology, there are both the good use cases and the bad side of technology as well. So, in general, there is a view that technology like ChatGPT will make students, especially students, lazy, and they will not go to books. They would just want everything. They would use ChatGPT as a silver spoon, and they would want everything served spoon fed to them. So that's not good, because when a student learns, as a teacher, all of you are aware, when a student learns, it's a multi-dimensional process. It's a holistic, multi-dimensional process, which means that student learns in different ways. He learns by peer learning, he learns by learning from teachers, he looks at visuals, he processes that information, he does his own interpretations, he has a natural curiosity. So yes, there is a danger that some of those things will be disrupted. Some of those things will get disrupted because of chat gpt. But the other side of the story is that if you tell people, if you are able to guide your students that this is how you should be using chat gpt, because obviously chat gpt is like an encyclopedia on fire on wheels. You're in a powerful encyclopedia that can answer any question of the world. So what you could always tell your students is that ChatGPT is a powerful technology. Use it with judgment, use it with good intent, and use it to augment your learning capabilities. So you should definitely read your NCRT books or your college books. You should definitely attend lectures that are coming from your teachers, but use ChatGPT to augment or complement that learning and not replace that learning. So in short, that's how you would want to orient your students to ChatGPT, because at the end of the day, the tool is as good as people who would be using it. Okay, we
One very
yes,
scary
please.
part that I just get to know during the
Yes,
discussion was
yes,
about what happened in the USA when the lawyer used the article
yes,
from ChatGPT,
ye-
and he got in a difficult situation. Now,
yes,
I'm sure if the algorithm is working in that way that it is creating on its own and it is fabricating the stories, then it becomes really a matter of concern as well. Rather
yes,
than helping us, and following it up blindly, it becomes even more important to, go through the entire thing generated by ChatGPT once again and proofread it. And that was
absolutely.
something really great learning for me for today because since
Yeah,
till the time you gave me that story, I was of the opinion that it is giving us 100% correct information. Everything is like
no,
proofread already.
no,
Yeah.
very good point, and very rightly said that you should definitely proofread and definitely double check your content that's coming out of chat gpt, because it can make up content, it can hallucinate. So there is this topic called chat gpt hallucination. So when people start hallucinating and just imagining things pretty much like that, chat gpt can also hallucinate. And I can't even pronounce that today. Hallucinate or hallucination. So I'll put that in the chat if anyone wants to read. Okay, Dr. Prahlad Singh, you have your hand raised. Please go ahead.
जी गुड इवनिंग सर।
Yes, please
सर
tell
ये
me.
अधिक उपयोगी है, सब अच्छा है, लेकिन अधिक यूज करने पर ये बौद्धिक विकलांगता नहीं होगी? बौद्धिक
बिल्कुल
विकलांगता।
बिल्कुल होगी सर, बिल्कुल होगी। सो आपने बहुत अच्छा वर्ड एक यूज किया, बौद्धिक विकलांगता। सो इट्स लाइक intellectual handicapped. You will a lot of our future generations, and we are already observing that, a lot of our future generations would not have the same level of faculties developed as we have if we don't use chat gpt in a wise way. So this is a very good question, Dr. Prahlad Singh. आपने बहुत अच्छी एक बात कही। चैट मैंने जैसा कि मैंने पहले भी बोला, and I try and answer this question in Hindi, but and with a smattering of English because there are other people as well. So किसी भी टूल का अच्छा पॉइंट, अच्छा साइड भी है. There's a good side of the tool and there is a bad side of the tool as well. The good side is that it can augment your learning. It can provide multiple avenues. Teachers के लिए और भी आयाम खुल जाते हैं इससे, चैट जीपीटी से. But the bad side is that students will become lazy and they would expect everything to be spoon fed. So which is
थैंक यू
which is
सर। जी
really
सर।
bad. Yeah. So मैंने जैसा कि बोला कि as teachers you have to educate students that there is a responsible use of these tools, or this tool is not a replacement for the teacher and classroom learning. और ये मैं बार बार emphasize करता हूँ, any technology only complements. Technology और tools आपकी teaching को और enhance करने के लिए और अच्छा करने के लिए, they are there to complement what you're doing. They are not there to replace what you're doing. It's very important for students as well as teachers to realize that. That was a very good question, Dr. Singh. Thank you for bringing that up.
थैंक यू सर। थैंक यू सर।
Okay, so what I'll do is we have to wrap up now. If there are any final questions, I am happy to answer them. But what I'll also do is I'll leave my email address. I'm happy to sort of stay connected if any of you have any further questions, or if you need anything with AI or generative AI in particular, or if you want to sort of present something in your college or school, anything you need around these topics, you can drop me an email and you can give a context of this, and I would be very happy to engage with you. So my email address, I put that in the chat. It's meetkapilsingh@yahoo.com. And thank you so much, everyone, for all your kind words. Really enjoyed taking this session. I'm sure you also enjoyed, and you also learned a few things that would be helpful for you. And I wish you all the best in all your future endeavors.
Thank you so much, sir. Really interesting session.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
sir. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Thank you,
great.
sir. Thank you.
I'm here for a couple of minutes if anyone has a question, and then I'll drop off as well.
Yeah.